So today what we're going to talk about limits. So the first thing that we need to know about limits is that you're going to see the fact that the questions are quite easy. It's the same as substitution. I'm not going to go deep about the theory of it. I'm just going to show you on how to solve the questions. So I'm going to go step by step on how to solve different types of questions. If you get in a test and they give you a question like this, it says the limit of x when x approaches 2, and this is the function of x plus 1. How would you solve it? First thing first, this is always the case. You first substitute your 2 inside the function to check whether does it exist or not. If you get undefined, then the limit does not exist. So let's do that. So what you're going to do is take your calculator, you can open a bracket. Then what you're going to say, you're going to say whatever the value where x approaches, which is 2 in our case, you're going to say 2. Then you're going to close the bracket. Then you're going to say plus 1. Then you're going to check whether does it exist or not. So if we say equals 2, we see the fact that our answer is 3. So it gives us an answer. So therefore, this limit is going to be 3. So this exists. So since you checked in your calculator that the limit is equals to 3, now you're going to write it in the proper way. And the first thing is you're going to say it's equals to, when you substitute this 2 inside the function, right, the limit drops. So you're going to say open bracket 2, where you see x, then you're going to say plus 1. Then you know the fact that 2 plus 1 is going to give you 3. So therefore, the limit is equals to 3. So now let's look at example number 2. When they say the limit of x when it approaches 1 of a constant or a number. In this case, it's 7. What happens? This is a case of always. If they give you a limit of a number, the limit is equals to that number. This limit is going to be equals to what? To 7. So this is a case of always. So if they say the limit of a constant or a number, it's always going to be equals to a number. For instance, if they give us a limit of x approaching 10 and they say a, our limit here is going to be equals to that value, which is a. Reason why is that we cannot substitute x in a constant. There isn't an x in front of it. So it's going to be just that number. Now let's look at example number 3. It says the limit when x approaches 10 of a function of x squared minus 100 divided by x minus 10. The first thing first, always, to know what you do, always we need to substitute the value of x, which is in our case is 10, inside the function to check whether the limit exists or not, so that we can know how to solve it. So let's do that. You're going to take your calculator and you're going to check whether the limit exists or not so that you can know how to solve it. So you're going to take your calculator, you're going to press the fraction sign because of this is a fraction. Then you're going to open a bracket. Then you're going to put whatever they said the limit reaches to, which is 10 in our case. So you're going to say 10, close your bracket. Then you're going to press the square sign, right? You're going to press the square sign. Then you're going to say minus 100. Then now we're going to go down. Then you're going to open your bracket. Then you're going to say 10, right? Close bracket minus 10. Then you're going to press equals to. Then we see that we get maths error. If we get maths error, what's going to happen is when we substitute just directly, we don't get a limit. So what we need to do is we need to tweak the question so that we can actually get a limit. So let's do that. Since we get a maths error, what we're going to do is we need to either check whether we can factorize the numerator or the denominator. In our case, that we see the fact that we can what? We can factorize the numerator. The numerator is what? Is a difference of 2 squares, right? So since it's a difference of 2 squared, we can factorize that. If you don't understand difference of 2 squares, I have a video on that. I'll leave an I on top. So to solve this is going to be equals to what? You're going to write limit. The reason why you're writing your limit is because of you haven't substituted the 10 inside the function. So you're going to say limit when x approaches 10, then you're going to open 2 brackets. You're going to say x here. You're going to say 10 and 10, because the square root of what? Of 100 is 10. Then you're going to say plus or minus. Then you're going to say divided by the denominator, which is x minus 10, right? So what do we see? We see the fact that we have x minus 10 in the numerator and x minus 10 in the denominator. So those are going to cancel out. Then you're going to have limit when x approaches 0. then you're going to say what's remaining. You're going to have x plus 10, right? So now we can actually substitute the 10 inside here. So you're going to say open bracket 10 plus 10. It's going to give you what? It's going to give you 20. And that's going to be your limit. Your limit is equals to 20. Now let's look at number 4, right? First thing first, always we need to check whether the limit exists or not. If the limit exists, then we know that the only thing that we need to do is just substitute and we get our limit. If it does not exist, we need to check what we can do, whether it's factorized. Let's check first whether the limit exists. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your calculator, right? When you take your calculator, you're going to press the division sign. You're going to open a bracket. You're going to type in 1 inside. Close the bracket, all squared, plus 3. Open a bracket, you're going to substitute 1 there. Then you're going to close it, minus 4. Then you're going to go down. It's going to be open bracket 1, close bracket, minus 1. And what do we get? We see the fact that we get a math error. If we get a math error, we see the fact that we need to check whether we can factorize the numerator or the denominator. So let's do that. Now, we see the fact that we actually can factorize the numerator, right? And numerator is factorizing using factorizing a trinomial. I also have a video on that. I will link it up. So when we factorize this, what do we get? So when we factorize that, we're going to get this. You're going to say the limit, because we haven't substituted, when x approaches 1, open bracket is going to be x, right? Plus 4, and the other one is going to be x minus 1. Then divided by what? X minus 1. What do we see? We see the fact that we have x minus 1 on top and x minus 1 in the bottom. So that's going to cancel. So you're going to have, write it down. You're going to say the limit when x approaches 1, then you write this, which is x plus 4. So now we can substitute. When we substitute, the limit drops. So you're going to say open bracket 1 plus 4, right? Then that's going to give you what? That's going to be equals to 5. So now let's look at question number 5. We have the limit when x approaches 0 of this function. First thing first, as always, we need to check whether does it exist or not, so that we know the fact that are we going to factorize or do other tricks so that it actually exists, right? So let's do that. So now we're going to take our calculator. We're going to substitute this function, substituting 0 inside. If you take a fraction and you say 1 divided by 0, because that's what we need to substitute, then you open a bracket like this. Then we're going to say what? Open another bracket. Then we're going to substitute 0. Then we're going to close the bracket. Then we're going to say all squared, right? Then you're going to say minus. Then you're going to open a bracket. Then you're going to say 0. Then you're going to close a bracket. Then close another bracket. And we say equals to, what do we get? We get a math error. So with this one, we see the fact that what makes a function undefined is that when we divide anything by 0, we see the fact that this 1 over x is the one that's making our entire functions undefined. So what we're going to do is we're going to distribute this 1 over x inside the bracket. So let's do that. If we say the limit when x approaches 0, right, then we're going to distribute it inside. So it's going to be 1 over x multiplied by x squared. It's just the same as x squared divided by x, right? Then 1 over x multiplied by negative x is going to be minus x divided by x, right? Then this one, when you simplify it, the limit, so this is going to become what? It's going to be just x using your exponential laws, right? Then this one's going to be what? It's going to give you 1. So this is going to be your new function. It's going to be x minus 1. So now since we have x minus 1, there is no denominator we can substitute. So when we substitute that limit, we get rid of the limit. So it's going to be open bracket 0 minus 1. And 0 minus 1 is going to give you negative 1. So the limit of this function is equals to negative 1. And we're done with the question.